Hello. Hi. Back again. Well, yeah. Today, I think we're going to do some leather tooling. Got to remember the camera's there, not up there. Sorry. I'll warn you now. Leather tooling takes a little bit of concentration, so I apologise in advance for keep sticking my tongue out whilst I concentrate. It's going to happen. Apologies. Right. The idea with leather tooling and carving, etc., is to decorate a piece of leather and turn it from something that might just be quite ordinary and functional into something that is quite ordinary and functional but decorative at the same time. I don't know if you've seen, if anybody's watching who has seen things like the most popular one, probably Vikings. They tended to be a bit more period accurate. There wasn't a great deal of decorative items on their armor and things like that. Their shields and everything and their axes and the stuff were decorated or had pieces on them. So it's not necessarily something that is Viking related. It is a technique that came about a little bit later. If you watched, it was on a little while back. I can't remember if it was on ITV or not. There was a program called Musketeers, all about obviously D'Artagnan and the Three Musketeers. But the armor that those guys wore, they called it the uniform. It was like a pauldron over one arm, but it had some highly decorated and tooled leather on it. It looked amazing, and I have to admit, it was pretty much the only reason I watched the TV series was to look at the leather tooling and the armor and things that they were wearing. Some of it was brilliant. I loved it. I can do this. I'm not amazing at it. If you want to see amazing people using these techniques, there's a particular style that I absolutely adore. I think it looks amazing. It's called Sheridan. It's used mainly in Western saddles and decorating Western saddles. I highly advise either doing a Google search, just look for Sheridan leather tooling. There's a gentleman called Al Stolman who's got loads of books and patterns and things like that about. He's been, I don't think Al Stolman is actually alive anymore. It's more of a business now. But there's a gentleman called Dick Cheney in Texas. He's a master saddle maker, makes Western saddles, roping saddles, things like that. And he decorates them all at the same time. What he can do is astounding. Obviously, he's been doing it for decades. The gentleman is not young anymore, but he does extremely down to earth videos. The video will be titled something like "How to Carve Something on a Saddle," and it'll be 2.5 minutes long. And he literally just carves something on a saddle and posts it to YouTube. There's not a great deal of information about it, but what he can do and the things that he shows you that he is doing, it is brilliant. He's an absolute master at it. Some of his videos, don't get me wrong, they are a lot more informative. But yeah, you can just see him freehanding something that I would have to work from a pattern or some sort of tracing in order to do. Yeah, it's crazy. Personally, my leather carving, I really like using natural elements. I will go out and find nice leaves and use those in a carving. Again, I'll go back to the Archer's Arm Guard, which is another video here on the channel. That was all hand carved, and I used leaves. I basically made the design just by placing leaves and drawing around them. And they were all leaves that I got from either the back garden or pretty close to my house. All leaves that fell in the autumn kind of thing, and I didn't take anything off of a tree that was alive. It was all completely ethical. But there was, I think it was cherry, hawthorn, oak, things like that. In particular, I like the oak leaves. I really like oak leaves. I don't know why. They just aesthetically appeal to me. And that's part of the reason why I've included them in my Maker's Mark, because I like them. Yeah. And obviously Mjolnir for, well, that should be obvious. Right. So enough waffle. Let's get on with this. The reason that I'm doing this mainly is because again, I was surfing the internet and I found some items and I thought, yeah, that'd be really cool. I want to use those. And what I'd found was some sticks that are used for hair barrettes. If you don't know what a hair barrette is, it is basically a piece of material about yay big. Could be leather, could be metal, could be some stiff cloth. It's got 2 holes in the end, and it holds a bun at the back of your head. Now, I've got long hair. I'm not going to demonstrate it. I have absolutely no idea how to use one myself. I have never used one, and I really don't think it would suit me. I can just about do a plait. That's about the extent of my decoration. Yeah, obviously I can do a plait. This is what I found. Let's see if the camera will focus on these instead of my face. Let me just hide my face. Come on, focus. There we go. Yay! So you get the idea. There's some lovely designs here. I'll switch the camera. There we go. So I'll put them here. There's a couple of duplications in the selection pack that I got. There's obviously these 2 are the same. These 3 are unique, and these 2 are the same. They're obviously mass produced. I think they might be made of sandalwood, to be honest. They smell so... Oh, it's awesome. They've been on the desk here since yesterday when they arrived. There's a very faint sandalwood smell in the shop now. It's quite nice. It goes well with the leather. These 2 in particular, I'm not going to be able to use. Not for this project. They're too short. They get too wide. The design disappears into the barrette too far, if you see what I mean. Yeah. Compared to one of these, as you can see, there's a long length of wood here that this bit would just stop it from going right the way through, kind of thing. These aren't suitable. I'm making a map of explaining it, but that's the point. They are not suitable. These, however, will all work. So there's 5 of them there. So what I'll probably do is try and come up with 5 different designs if I can. Or 5 of the same design, depending on how artistic I'm feeling. And when I say I come up with a design, that's complete fallacy. I have an account with Shutterstock, and not sponsored. And I go on there, and that way an artist is being paid when I download an item and use it. I get a certain amount of copyright on it. I can use the image legally. It's all a little bit above board, if that makes sense. Rather than just seeing something on a Google search and downloading it or printing it, which is something that some people do, but then the actual artist never gets paid. And you're potentially, I'm not 100% sure, but you might well be breaking a copyright infringement. So don't get caught doing it, or even do it. It's not a good idea. Respect people. So this piece of leather here, I've cut with my strap cutter. It's just a nice size. I shall bring in, this is the one that was in the thumbnail of the video here. I did make this morning. It mainly so that I could actually have, let me angle that right. It mainly says that I could actually have a thumbnail for something. Turns out YouTube will randomly grab a thumbnail of anything it wants from the video or the live stream, but as I'm setting up the live stream, the only thing that's there is my little opening title thing there. So I'm always going to have the same thumbnail. So I have to create a thumbnail, or else it's all going to be the same. It's never going to change. I know I can upload them afterwards, but that's kind of not the point. So I'm trying to make the thumbnails a bit more descriptive. So I did this morning. And I will now go and describe the technique and everything. But I made it to fit this particular stick, this particular barrette stick, mainly because of the length of it. Now, bear in mind, obviously, it's going to be curved. I'm trying not to curve it right now because it's still wet, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. But I don't want to curve it just yet. But it's designed to roughly fit this particular stick. So I'm going to put that to one side. It's still a little bit wet, but hopefully not too wet. I don't want that. If I can, by the time I finish doing this, if that is dry enough, then I will finish it. I'm hoping to use antiquing gel on it, which is something different. It's not just going to be dyed. I'll get to that in a bit, but antiquing gel is something that is used quite widely with Sheridan style. Have a look at it. I don't want to go on too much about the whole thing right now, but onto this piece of leather. It's come off of a hide that I've got here that I've been storing in the shop. I made a mistake. I stored it a little bit too close to another hide that has got like an oil tan finish on it. This is just straight normal veg tan. It's a couple of millimeters thick. That is enough. You can carve on that. It'd be better if it was a bit thicker. For carving, you get a deeper impression, but you can still make an image on it. But as you can see, there's a stain here. So there's a little bit of this over the hide. It might give it some problems accepting a dye or something, but other than that, there's nothing wrong with it. But there's nothing at all wrong with the bit that isn't stained. So that's the only reason that mark is there. So what I'm going to do... Read that on. It's a nice one, isn't it? It's probably better on there. There you go. So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking about that much needs to be used. Also, 1, 2, 3, it's about 4 inches, isn't it? And again, the Brett is going to be curved. So it'll curve around the hair at the back and that skewers through it. So 4 inches at the most on that, I think. Right, set square. Set 2, 4 inches. Hang on. Back to front. Sorry about the noise from the chair that I'm sitting on. The only one that will actually get me up high enough to be in the view of the camera, but not so low that I disappear behind the bench. The bench was designed to be stood at. Back to one side. Sheath the knife. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a corner around the corners on this to make it look nice. Then I'm going to do the edge trimming. Do all that before I start carving, before I even make it wet. The reason for I'll explain that as I go along, but once the wood is wet, wood, leather, the leather. Once the leather is wet, then it becomes it'll take a mark extremely easily, and that can be a problem if you end up marking it somewhere you don't want to mark it. So as a rule, the number one rule I have before I start doing any leather carving is I trim my fingernails. The amount of times I've been carving and then realise that my little fingernails been digging gouges as I go around. So that was something I learned early on. Also, you see this tool can leave quite a bit of a mark on the leather if it's wet, kind of thing. So there we go, that way. Need that one. both sides, obviously. It's just getting it ready for burnishing once the pattern is on there. There we go, it's all nicely prepared. I think I will actually put the holes in it to start off with. Oh yeah, just so you can get a better idea of what the pattern is that we're going to be doing. There's a big version of it. So I'm just double checking to make sure I don't stick the hole somewhere where it's not going to, where it is going to interfere with the pattern. Really itchy nose for some reason. But you needed to know that, didn't you? Just gives me a rough idea of where it should be. Where's the pulley thing? Yeah, rather than potentially misshaping the leather, just use something like this. Well, you could use a ruler or whatever. Just pushes it down off of the tool instead of like yanking the leather into a funny shape. So with any luck, that should. There we go. So that's the idea. Pretty simple, really, isn't it? Could just leave it like that, but where's the fun in that? Let's put something nice on it. Now might actually be a good time to show you the toolbox I've got here. I'm going to grab this camera here, and apologies for this, very unprofessional. There we go. That's just this is just a stand for a light. But you can see I've got all my dies and stains and everything on here, and these are all my tools that I would hit with hammers. Well, that's actually the stitching all pen and things like that. We're about to see this one in action. But yeah, my father made that for me. I can pick it up and move it around. A big drawer's got all the hammers and knives and stuff in it at the bottom. Yeah, it works really well. Really cool. That's one side. So whenever you see my hand disappear off the side here like this, and I come back with a tool, that's because I've just grabbed it from there. Now the first step that you need to do when you're doing any of this, first thing I'm going to do actually is switch the cameras around a little bit. My apologies. Now, I was trying to work this all out earlier. What do I need to do in order to give you guys a good close-up of what I'm doing without getting my hands in the way, or not having my hands in the frame at all, or even the item in the frame at all? All right. Apologies, I've got no way of previewing this, so let's yay! Oh, I solved the cold cup of tea problem as well. It's a massive mug. There you go, you can see it here a bit better. It's huge, isn't it? Key point of it is, this is something I got from Poland when I was on my travels. It sits on a stand, and inside that stand is a tea light. And it keeps your drink warm. I think in Poland what they do is they put beer in that, like a warm beer that they serve. And you could always make it at home. You can mull your own beer kind of thing, and that would be something to keep it warm. Right, so the first technical term of the day is casing leather. It's a fancy way of saying making it wet. Now, I've seen lots of different bits of advice for this, or different techniques that people have used. Some people soak the item of leather entirely in water, and they say that once the bubbles stop coming out of it, then it is properly cased. I personally find that gives you an extremely wet piece of leather, and that's about it. That's the only real difference. I just make the surface wet because at the end of the day, you're only really affecting the surface, maybe that much kind of down. You're not going very far into the leather. This is my personal preference. This is how I do it. You'll see now that it's about to soak up a lot of water anyway. I'm just going to dab this on here. Get it reasonably even. I don't feel the need to completely saturate the leather. I have tried techniques, I have messed around with this, and I found that this works just as well as saturating it entirely, if not better, because it tends to dry out faster. It means you get to the point where you can start dyeing it a little bit quicker, or doing whatever else you need to do with leather. And maybe some people out there are absolutely horrified by the idea of making leather wet. Yes, it will damage it if you don't treat it properly afterwards. So once we've made the item, then I would put conditioners and things like that and replace any kind of oils or anything that have been washed out of the leather in the process of making it wet. So it'll be fine as long as you treat it properly afterwards. It won't be an issue. The way that you get a pattern onto a piece of leather, like I said, it is very, very easily marked when it's wet. So if you put this piece of paper over here like this, and then trace around it with a stylus, you'll transfer the image onto the leather. You don't have to use a fancy stylus. You can use a ballpoint pen. I did for a long time. Works quite well, actually. And not only that, it does allow you to see where you've been if you've missed a bit, because obviously you have the ink from the ballpoint pen on the paper, so you'll know if you've... Sorry, that isn't very... Yeah. So you'll know if you've missed a bit of the pattern. So that can actually be quite a valid way of doing it. I'm just going to line this up roughly on here. I'm just going to use sense of touch. I can feel where the holes are. Holes are just under there. I should be able to... That's the edge there. Let's lift that up slightly. Get in a position that you're happy with. And then literally just use the stylus to draw on top of the piece of paper. Now, an important thing to do here is not move your piece of paper. I'm pressing reasonably hard to do this. You can feel the stylus marking the leather underneath. Sometimes I'm going backwards and forwards a little bit, just to make sure I have got a really decent mark. That is largely so that the camera will pick it up, and that's also partly why the camera's been moved closer.
obviously the paper ripples and moves a little bit as you work, so that's partly why I'm going like this and like that in different directions, just trying to keep it lined up in the same place. So yeah, adding the water makes it easier to mark the leather and carve it. You can do this dry, but you'll be working very hard at doing this. Obviously, as long as you don't move it, you can pick it up and have a quick look and make sure that you have done everything. It's just like literally tracing an art class. Maybe when you're at junior school or something. Just lifting the stylus up on a regular basis to stop the paper from wrinkling and moving too much. Ooh. There's a couple of reasons why I chose this particular design. It wasn't just because of the oak leaves and the acorn. It was because of some nice, smooth, curvy lines. I'll show you how the knife is used. And also because of the black and white nature of it. In this particular design, everything that is black is going to be left raised. Anything around the outside of the black, as in the white area, will be indented. So more will become clear if you've never seen this technique. It's become even more obvious actually now, but there is actually a scar or a mark right the way through the corner of this. As this is mainly for demonstration purposes, it's not an issue. Now the paper has soaked up a lot of water from this. You can see it's starting to dry. You can see just how wet I have not made it. It hasn't come right the way through. Eventually the water may well come right the way through as I'm working. So I'm just going to damp it down a little bit, let that soak in for a second. And I will explain the next bit. And that is using a swivel knife. Comfy on the chair there. Put the stylus away. This is a swivel knife. So called because it swivels and it's got this little yoke here. You put your index finger in it and you hold it like this. Underneath here is a blade. On this particular knife, I have a very fine blade. Well, not a very fine blade. I have a pretty fine blade. It's got quite a steep angle on here and it's not a very wide blade. A standard carving blade I've got here. This is a set you can buy off of the internet. I bought these sets and then made up a sleeve roll for them. They're pretty basic. They've got some decent stamps in here. They've got all your basics that you need, but then they've got lots of things like very decorative things like this butterfly. I look at that kind of thing and I go, why? There's a lot of different styluses, different sizes. They're essentially the same as what I've just been using. They're just in different sizes, but hammered into a wooden handle. And this is a standard swivel knife. Mine isn't anything particularly fancy. There are swivel knives out there that have all these fancy bearings to make it smoother as you turn the knife. Ceramic blades, that's a good upgrade. I've been tempted by that myself a few times. But you can see a standard blade is actually quite square. It's got a straight edge and it's square. And the idea is that you put it into the leather and draw it towards you with that corner in the leather. You don't put it down flat like that. You draw it towards you. Demonstrate like this. Can you actually see that? Like that. So you put it down and draw it towards you. I have done small classes here at the shop with tooling and carving leather. And the first big mistake that anybody, adult or child, ever makes is they try and use the knife like a normal knife. They don't use the corner of it, they try and put it in flat. It's mainly for maneuverability, but also because as you're drawing it towards you, you've got the angle that helps you cut into the leather. And the other thing they do is they hit the tool far too hard. It is just a gentle tap. It's nothing too hard. I won't go into too much depth about the actual tools themselves. I'll introduce them as I use them because, as you can see, there's a huge variety of different stamps and things like that can be used. There are some fantastic ones out there. There are some people that make these stamps and they come up with lots of different designs and ideas. They're brilliant. I've bought some off of some people. I've bought them off of Etsy and places like that. I've got up there, I've got a lovely dragon scale one. Love it. It's a brilliant stamp. Cost me a fair penny because it came all the way from Hungary. And I wouldn't want to buy anything now considering all this leaving the EU stuff that's going on at the moment and how many problems that's causing for getting anything from Europe. I don't know if we'll actually be able to get any more of the Hungarian stamps off of Etsy. It's a shame because they're good. So going to this knife, I've got it set up because this is a height adjuster in here. Oh, hello. You say yoke. Hello, Yoki. Yoke, yeah, this yoke. Yeah. I wasn't. Yeah, it is still broken, isn't it? It wasn't broken before. It's you. It's not me. It's you. Louisa was talking to me in my last one, in the last video, and it didn't do that. It's all you. Well, nice to have you along anyway. Thank you very much. So I'm going to get on with carving this. So I like to just... Oh, actually, look, hey, I missed a bit. A bit of the branch is missing, isn't it? So this is where I'm going to have to be artistic and freehand this bit. Hopefully I can do it. Let's do it from the outset, shall we? So fingers crossed the camera you can see. Talking about fingers, keeping them out of the way. So you can see as I draw the knife towards me, I can turn the knife in the leather. Just swivel it on the point of the blade. Now I did turn it and go away from myself a little bit there, which is perfectly fine. I have seen some people that never turn the leather as they're working. They just keep going and just do the entire design. The idea is that the pressure, the downward pressure comes from your finger and the yoke at the top there. I did it wrong. Yeah. Yeah, that was a little humorous, that actually, for us. None of us realised that you were actually talking at the time. It's a shame, we probably missed out on a lot. Yeah, so just turning the leather helps tighten the curve. I am turning the blade at the same time, but sometimes having the design nearby helps too, because you can see which bits are a curve and which bits are a sharp turn and things like that. Whole point is basically trying to keep it somewhere where you can see your line and see where you're going. around. If you do need to put the knife back into the cut that you've just made, go back a little bit, or else you'll end up with a kind of tag. So there's the first cuts. I think it's coming up on the camera okay, isn't it? Yeah, we didn't respond because we didn't know you were laughing. Okay, following that line. Yeah. Yeah, true. So now the points inside the leaves here at the ends of these channels, there's a bit of a point. So I'm going to start there and come back round to it on the other side. Yeah, it slipped. The idea with these nice graceful curves is to try and keep following them, turning the leather and turning the knife. Ideally, if I was better at this, I'd go all the way around in one shot. I need a bit more practice, despite having already done this pattern once today. Important thing to remember is that the mark you make with the stylus, sometimes you're just not actually going to be able to follow it. And that's where a little bit of artistic license comes in handy. So I didn't quite get the knife back in the right place there, and I've got a little bit of a tag. So I'm just going to tidy up the ins and the ends. Again, I think I'll start in about the same place here. Should start to dry out again. That might help. Yeah. Silence of true focus. So what have you been doing up since 4 this morning? Walking the dog? Homework? Even I don't get up that early. Keep working into the shadow of my hand, sorry. I can't see what I'm doing, so I have to keep turning it. Point there. Sure, that's all right. There you go. Now that's carved into the leather. Oh right, what's schoolwork then? Yeah, I'm older than you, but anyway. I've got a lot to do in a day. Has anybody seen that little red bit that was on the end there? Where did I put that? I can't find it. Oh, that's frustrating. Right, I'll just put that over there safely somewhere. So it's not amazingly sharp, but yeah. Still want to keep it safe. Now, this surface here is fine for doing all the cutting and everything on, but I don't want to be doing the carving on it. As I said, leather gets very soft and picks up marks easily, and it can pick up a mark from the surface that you're doing the carving on. Over there, outside on the other side. Yeah. Ah, there it is. Underneath the pattern. There we go. Knife is safe now. I'll put that away on the board up there. Yeah, you don't want to do your carving on this surface just in case it picks up a mark from the underneath. It can happen. Let's see the carve on. It's something extremely flat. This is a piece of quartz marble or something. I bought this off of a company that sells things like this for leatherworking. I'm just pointing that. Is that going to work there? Yeah, oh, crikey, this camera's pretty good. Amaze you. What am I being amazing at this time? So this would be nice and flat. It's also quite cold. It's going to be like a heat sink, which will help keep the leather wet because the leather won't get hot, so therefore it won't evaporate all the water out of it. That's the theory. But on the other side of the shop, out of shot over there, I've got a chunk of what is our worktop at home. When we got the kitchen fitted, they cut out a big chunk of the worktop to put the stovetop in. And I said, can I have that? So I've got this rather large one, so I can do much larger pieces over there, but this is quite a nice piece. But thing to do, if you want something like this, don't go spending lots of money on it. Find a stonemason if you can. They often have offcuts of things around. Look for anybody who's like a kitchen fitter or something like that. See if you can get any kind of off. See if you can get any kind of offcuts or something from somewhere, like the offcut from my own worktop. Yeah, you don't need to spend £100 or something on a lump of fancy quartz. It's not really necessary. Oh, still warm, lovely. So now the fun bit, the hammer. Now the tools that you use, I'll go into a little bit about this now. They've got a shape to them. So let me just put that somewhere where the camera can see it. Can you see that there's a slight point here with a bevel? There. This is literally called an edge beveler. It's got a slight pattern to the end of it. It might not come up on the camera. It's like a little shader. That would add like a cross pattern to the leather as you hit it. On this one, it's very, very subtle. You don't really notice it very much whilst you're using it. I've got ones up here that have got a much stronger pattern, but these are a bit too big for this pattern, like this design that I'm doing. But you can see that that's not smooth at all. And here's another large, smooth edge beveler. I can remember which way around to move things in the camera. They're essentially the same tool, except for one's got this cross hatching on it, and the other one doesn't. There's a myriad of different ones there. I won't go too far into it because there's just so many. I'm just going to use the standard edge beveler, bevel edge thing. Right, where do I need to put this so that it can be seen? Like that, I think, isn't it? Now, the tool, the point of this goes into tight frame, not much less space to move. The point of this goes into the cut. The angle pushes down the side of that side of the leather. So when you're doing this, you need to decide which bit's going to stand up and which bit's going to be pushed down. And like I said, in this instance, everything in the design that was black is going to stand up. And up there. There. So everything that's black there is going to be standing up. Everything that's white is going to get pushed down. So that means that when I put this into the cut there, like this, I've got the beveled edge away from the black bit. And it will become evident as I start to hit it with the hammer. So work in a way that you can see what you're doing. So you can see how I've placed that in the... Where have I got it? There we go. So you can see that I've placed that in the groove I've just cut with the blade. And hopefully when I tap this, it doesn't make the camera jump around too much. And now I'm just going to tap the top of the tool with the poly maul. Again, this is a poly maul, it's not a metal hammer. You'd burr over the top of this. And can you see how that's changing slightly there? It's starting to push down one side of the cut. The other side is staying where it was. And each time I tap it, I'm moving it. I'm just moving it a little bit. I'm not moving it a lot. Mainly because it's not got a very large face on it, this tool. If I was using the other tool, the bigger ones I just showed you, then I'd move it further between each tap. Turn the volume down, headphone users. Yeah, this camera here is the one that's got the microphone on it. Sorry, I will talk a little bit softer. I'm used to trying to shout because it's normally a little bit further away. Why don't you turn your volume down? Why do I need to turn my volume down? So I'll do the other side of this cut now as well. I'm going to show you what's going on. thing is, just like with the swivel knife, as you're going along, if you get to a corner, you can just twist the tool like that in preparation for the hammer. Yeah, well, hopefully I've got the levels sorted out on this, that the hammer shouldn't be too loud. Fingers crossed. So if you look at that now, you can see that the leaf on either side of the stem in the middle is still standing proud, and you're starting to see the design pop up. So I'll carry on going around this leaf. When you start to get close to another part of the design, there's no reason why you can't tilt like this to make sure you don't press the wrong bit down. You also see what I mean about not having to hit it too hard. I'm just gently tapping it. And because leather is cased and quite sensitive to pressure and will pick up a mark easily, you're just going to be able to keep tapping it nice and gently. You can go backwards and forwards along it, it's not a problem. The idea is to try and not be able to see the individual indentations that you've struck. You should be able to get a smooth edge all the way around. That bit takes a bit of practice. Still can't always do it. You have good days, you have bad days. And this corner, it's just a little bit too tight, so I've got an even narrower tool. You can see that one is even narrower than the other one. Oh, I'm glad you think so. I can just use this right in the corner here. It's got a much steeper angle on the back side of it as well, on the face. This isn't actually what it's designed for, this particular technique. I think this is an undercut, and you'd use it to lift up the edge of the beveled leather. My wife bought that one for me, I think for a birthday present. Yeah, might well have been a birthday present a few years ago. Love it though. It's brilliant for getting into those tight corners that you couldn't get with the other ones. Thank you, my dear. Starting to dry out a bit. Just make this wet. Even more so than the cutting, it's absolutely vital that the leather stays damp whilst you do this bit, or else you just can't get the marks on it. So if whilst you're wetting it down, you're starting to find that the water is sitting on top of the leather, then it's wet enough. You don't need to make it any wetter. Okay, I'm just going to work up to this corner here. Just tied it up slightly with this. Thing to remember when you switch tools. I make the tea at home. Admittedly, Lou makes the tea here at the shop. Yes, so quid pro quo. When you change tools, remember if you change from a tool that's got a larger face on it to one with a smaller face on it, you need to tap lighter, even lighter. Think about how a nail works. use your hammer, you strike the head of the nail, and you've got a very fine point at the end that helps you drive it into the wood. Essentially, you're doing the same thing. You're hitting something that's closely resembling a nail. So if you hit it too hard, you're going to put this big indentation that you then can't smooth out. You work really hard to make it look good anymore. So just be wary when you're doing it as to how hard you hit it. There are ways of, if you're struggling to get it looking smooth, because it isn't always easy to do. If you've oversaturated the leather accidentally, then you'll find that you'll get every single little mark in it. There are things that you can do to just hide the unevenness, the jagged edging. And that largely is what the shaders are for. And beveled shading tools, like that big one that I showed you earlier, with the cross hatch on the end. If you went round with that, you would never see the unevenness where you've struck it ever so slightly harder or smoother, or lighter, I should say. It'll just hide all of that. It's a brilliant tool. But not if you're doing fine stuff like this. You need one the right size for the job. I don't have one. I really should try and buy some. So just stopping there, you can really see the difference. I don't know if the camera can pick that up, can it? No, I don't think it's coming out all that well on there, actually. No. Well, you can really see the difference from the last strike and the bit that you're going to hit next. I must add as well that you're kind of restraining the tool a little bit as well. You've got to, that's what my little finger is doing here. Well, I think I might, excuse me for doing this. There we go. I'll put myself on the other side, you might be able to see a bit easier. Yeah, there's just the lighting in here. I mean, I can see it perfectly, but then the camera and stuff like that. So what I'm saying is that you're restraining the tool. I'm using my little finger and the shaping my hand as such to form a cradle, so that when I strike the leather, it doesn't slide too far down into the groove. I'm basically trying to push this side of the cut down and not slide into the other side, the other wall of the cut, the other side of it. So I'm actually restraining the tool backwards slightly all the time. And my little finger also acts as like a return spring, so I go tap, lift, like that the whole time. Switch over and just get into that corner a little bit better. So here on design, you can see that bit I'm just working on there is getting very close to the top of this acorn. So I'm just going to tip my tool to the side slightly to make sure I don't make an indent on the wrong side, to the wrong part of the image. There we go. So you should be able to see the real difference between this leaf and this leaf now. But there's more. There's other things I can do to make it really pop out a bit more. A little bit more water on it. So I'm going to go around this acorn. Again, tilting away ever so slightly so I don't touch the other part of the acorn. That's a bit of a tight corner there. Tidy that up a bit. Carry on with the acorn part and just work my way around. This is a tricky bit because it's right in the middle. It's very, very close to both of the leaves. I won't go too close with this tool into there because I've got a much better one for that. Okay. Sorry, make sure I'm in the shot. To say this really is one of those techniques that you either have to enjoy doing or be really focused on the outcome and what it's going to look like and know that it's going to look good. You're really determined. There you go. One more leaf to go. No, excuse me. Thirsty work. Candle's still alight, still keeping my tea warm. Alright, so it's making a funny vibration. Must be that. Don't be afraid to use the corner of your tool just to kind of get it into there. It's not. Yeah, don't be afraid to just use the corners to get into the pattern if need be. This one's got quite rounded corners, so it doesn't really work that well, that technique. See, I'm just twisting it in my fingers as I go. I'm following the pattern. Yeah, so I kind of went up to that corner and stopped and then came into the corner from the other direction. That Yeah, my tea is over a candle. It's keeping it warm. It's a special mug for doing that. It could be fancy and use like a little USB thing I've seen that people have, but I use a candle. Right. Yeah, so I just came into that corner, stopped, and then came into the corner from that direction. Moved my fingers out of the way. So it came in there, stopped, moved, and went back in that way. It helps you just get that corner. It isn't perfect. I'm going to finish it with this. I'm not actually aiming for perfection, but it's nice if you can get a nice smooth finish on something to do so. This chair probably sliding off of it. Thing you've got to be careful of is not your tool not sliding too far down into the cut. If it starts to do that, and then you get a kind of burr on the raised area around the outside edge. Yeah. A tea cozy, well, yeah. But I've got a candle. I've got a flame. You know? It doesn't really go very well with the whole Viking image, does it? Having a tea cozy on a teapot sitting there. But a fire? I got flame. Yeah, that looks better. Should have a couple of axes on the wall behind me, shouldn't I? Mind you, I think hanging a couple of axes on the wall, this is a shop after all. I don't think that would be a very good image, would it? Dry out a bit again. So again, just tilting the top of the tool so they don't compress the carving behind it. Just get to the end here now. Right, so that's the edge beveling done on the entire design. So you can see it's already starting to make it stand out more. Viking helmet tea cozy. No, just no. I have a candle. I like my candle. It's actually actively heating the tea. It's getting hotter as there's less in there. So, right, now there's something else that I can do. It's called shading. There's various different shading tools. You get pear shaders, you get beveled shaders, you can get various different ones. Now, there is also a set of tools called backgrounders. And they literally are used to push the background down and make a design come forward further. Yeah, you're perfectly welcome to get a Viking helmet tea cozy if you wish. I'm not going to stop you. I have a backgrounding tool here. This is a particularly small one. It's got a pear shape to it, and it's got a very, very defined teeth on it. It really, really does make it push the leather down and put a shade on it as such. It's pointed at one end. I wouldn't say it's pear shaped. It's more teardrop shaped. The camera just isn't going to show you it very clearly. Maybe like that. It's a teardrop shape. That is really good for getting into these little corners. It's a brilliant pear shader, a brilliant shader for doing something like this, because you can see right at the end of the leaf spine here, it gets very fine. Well, this tool actually fits this design perfectly, and it is literally just used by doing that. Let's turn that around. I don't know if the camera will show you that now. So I'll do the whole thing. I'd never do that. One thing I will say about when I'm using this tool, because it's got such a defined point at that on one side, I tend to lean it away from that point so that I don't end up with that shape constantly appearing all over the shading. So I tend to lean it towards the rounder end. I'm just going to work my way down this bit here, overlapping it, and giving it, well, you can probably tell, I don't know if it's coming through as sound on the camera or vibration or anything, but you can probably tell I'm giving it a much more solid thump than I did with the bevelers whilst I was making the embossing. So and back over it, just check and make sure that I've smoothed it out so it's nice and even. So one other thing that these tools do for your design, because of the checkering that they leave behind, the shading, you'll actually grab hold of more dye or whatever you use. If you're going to colour the design, it'll grab hold of it. There's more surface area, so there'll be more dye, and it'll concentrate the dye or stain or whatever you use and give you a much much more defined edges and give you a really strong design. There's probably a good word for it, but making it pop just sounds so wrong for some reason to me. It's just so cliche. So again, be careful. Make sure that when you put it down, you know that you aren't touching something that doesn't need to be shaded. Because once you've struck this tool, there's no going back. It will leave a mark. And if you've put the mark in the wrong place, that's it. You've either got to find a way of covering it up or start again. It doesn't take any prisoners. So I'm using the curved side, or the curved end of it, just to work my way. So I can just turn it around like that and put it into that join between the two edges. Just, it really gets into that bit there quite nicely. Just go over the middle of it, because that's the other thing as well. I mean, you hit one bit that side and the other side comes up, so it just pushes it out of the way if you make sure it's all nice and flat. It's possible you're thinking to yourself, now, why didn't Ben do this from the outset? Just do the carving and then do this bit. To be truthful, it doesn't actually work that well. I had the same thought myself. I tried it. The results weren't as good as doing the stages and doing it in the right order. And it comes out looking a lot better like this. That was my personal experience. Somebody might be a little bit better at it with the tools, I don't know. But if you find that you can do it that way, you might be able to cut down on, say, half an hour of hitting things with hammers. But personally, I found this is the way that works best for me and my skill set. Just going to fill this area in. So you can see I'm just working my way around the outside of these leaves. I can turn the tool around, making sure I'm using something that's the same shape as the bit that I'm working around. Yeah, same shape tool. I am leaning it back quite heavily. Try and stop the point from making an indentation. Turn it so I can see what I'm doing. I'm desperately trying to make sure I can keep the camera seeing what I'm seeing or doing what I'm doing, following me. So apologies. I'm hoping it stays there. So going around that leaf with that shader, you can hopefully see how much of a difference it makes. Put more water in it. Just going to be very careful, make sure that the tool doesn't overlap the edges here. Actually goes into the bit I want it to go into. Let's go around the inside of its acorn. Alright, just go around the outside of the acorn now, on top of it. Go, all shaded in. Let's see if the camera will eventually figure out that's there and focus on it. Something bigger to see. There we go. So you can see how the shading really makes a difference, doesn't it? Is it all gone? That's what it looks like when it's dried. very nearly dry. Very, very nearly dry. So I've got over here. Move this camera back a little bit, I think. Now the other one, I didn't do any backgrounding, I just shaded around the outside edge of it. I have background tools. I bought these. These are some of the ones I got off Etsy from a gentleman in Hungary. Let me find a... Yeah, this is ironic. I'm looking for a piece of leather. I'll show you the differences between them. Basically, they're just obscuring patterns that can be used to fill in the background, and again to allow you to grab more finish, more stain, more dye, whatever. Now, some are more subtle than others. That one I particularly like. That one's quite nice, but because it's very directional, it's got strikes something like that, and it's square, you have to think a lot more about where you place it. It's not all that random. The one just there, the bubbles one, it's very, very subtle. I like that a lot, that one. I have used it a few times in the past. This bit is a little bit quicker. I'm going to finish the whole thing. I'm going to do it all with the with one of these backgrounders, and I think I'll probably end up going with my favourite one. The bubbles, kind of frothy light look to it. One thing we could do is we could put a border on it. Should I do that? No, I'll tell you what. I think I know a way of doing this. Right, so let's see what we can do with this. Alright, so I'm not going to go over the bit that I've already shaded. This is going to go around the outside of that area. I'm going to use it to blend it in further and make the design slightly larger, and hopefully highlight the area of the design part of it. So it's one of the reasons why I chose... Try using the correct end of the tool, Ben. One of the reasons why I chose a subtler background. So I've just gone on the bottom there, and you can see how it's smoothed it out. You've still got the shading area, but it's not quite so obvious. It's not such a heavy indentation. It's just smoothing it out. And it's such a subtle design, this one, particularly if you don't strike the tool too hard, or even use the correct end. because it's so subtle you can barely see it. You need coffee. I've drunk far too much coffee for today. I have filled my caffeine quota. He says, picking up a massive cup of tea that took 2 tea bags to brew. Still warm. Right, there you go. So that's smoothed out the edges quite a lot, hasn't it? Hasn't taken, I don't think it's taken anything away from it, really. Hasn't. Let's angle this rightly. It's quite a subtle difference, isn't it? But you can see that there's a difference. Just that last little step, that simple little thing that I did there, going around with a different shader. Obviously, it's going to look a little bit different. 2 litres. Why? Yes, go get caffeine. There's far too much blood in your caffeine stream now. You need to do something about that. There was obviously going to be a slight difference because that one's dry and that one's wet, so it does look slightly different. I don't think this one is quite dry enough yet. It looks darker in between here because it is still wet. When it's all the same colour right the way across, it is dry. So this is still too wet, unfortunately. So that, I think, will probably be a job for another day. I will try and get that finished for the next stream. I have on the way some leather. It's a mystery pack of bits of leather. How much of it will be carvable, I don't know. I'm aiming to use it to make little notes and card holders. It should be quite nice. It's from Tusting and Burnett, and it's the vintage leather mystery pack. And it should be lots of different leathers that have different finishes. They've got a particular brand that they call Mad Dog. It's like a kind of waxed finish, but it's all crazed with lots of colours streaming through it. So you'll get dark browns and light browns and creams all crazed within one piece of leather. You'll see what I mean when it gets here. It's unfortunately been delayed by snow. They're in Yorkshire somewhere, I believe, if I remember rightly. Could be wrong. But they've been delayed by snow. So they must have a lot there for the postal service not to be able to, or for them not to get to the post office, I imagine. But anyway, hopefully you like that. Yeah, it was fun for me to do. I enjoy doing this kind of thing. I will probably decorate a lot more things because I have more time. The difficulty with doing something like this and running the shop at the same time is that you just can't sit down to do the job for long. That's not a criticism on having customers. It's just a fact. It's something you need to sit down and concentrate on. So, yeah, I'm enjoying this. I'll probably make a few barrettes. Might even just use the Mad Dog leathers for some of it, possibly. I've still got a few more of these barrette sticks that need to be used wherever I've put them. Oh, yeah, there it is. These are lovely sandalwood. Love it. I've still got quite a few of these to use now. I've got about another 3 or 4 there to do. So I should try and find some designs for them. Or interesting leathers. Anything along those lines. Any ideas? Is there a pattern you'd like to see me carve? Or attempt to carve? I must hasten to add that not all of them are possible. There are limitations, or you might have to simplify the pattern slightly. But either way, thank you very, very much for watching and sticking with me. It's not the most entertaining, but as I said, it's one of those things that you have to be determined with and know what your outcome's going to be like. And again, yes, thank you very much for sticking with me. Please consider subscribing if you'd like, or even sharing and ringing that bell thing. Yeah. I will put links to other videos and subscriptions up at the end of the stream. There's a little process that YouTube has to do with a live stream. They have to do their own compiling So when I end this stream, there'll only be the standard digital version available. The high definition will become available once they've processed it, once it's been done at their end. And when that is done, that's when I can put the subscription links up. So I will do that in the next few hours, hopefully. But yeah, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.